Hello, everybody, and welcome to Brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. Of course, I'm your host, BMR. How is everybody in this fine Thursday afternoon? It's chilly here in the state of Michigan, and it's snowing. And yesterday, I put down my fertilizer for the lawn, as they said I should. We'll see how that works out as the spring rolls on in. Actually, yesterday was the first day of spring, and we got snow. But you know what? That's Michigan. Thanks for everybody for tuning on in. We have a great show today. Karin Wilkinson joins me. She's an author. Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest, Alien Abduction story, novel, book. We're going to get into that a little bit in a few minutes when I bring up the lovely Karin. If this is your first time here, please subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube. Subscribe to the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal podcast on YouTube as well as Texas Front Porch. Thank you for that. If this is your first time here, you can also find us on KPNL Radio, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, all our podcasts are. There's about 15 platforms for you to pick from. Go check it on out. If you like and want to help support the channel, of course, the super chat is always open. The super chat is available. And also become a BMR Pirate. That's right. You get a little picture of me with a bandana. You can join today if you like. I got about 70 strong and growing. Thanks for all the members. I do appreciate that. It's this little fun thing I do for you guys. And well, frankly, what you help do for me in your support. I do appreciate that. I also got to thank everybody out there that's bought my book, Bigfoot Michigan Represents True Cryptid Encounters, Book 1. It's on Amazon. The link is pinned in the chat. The link is also on my YouTube page. And all you need to do is type in Bigfoot Michigan Rob on Amazon in the browser. It will pull up. And let me tell you, for those that bought it, Amazon is going to be giving you a call or an email and asking you to write a review. Well, I tell you what, it's all analytics these days. It's all analytics. Leave a review. It does help promote book sales. I appreciate each and every single one of you for that. Also, don't forget, June 7th through the 8th, the Alabama Bigfoot Conference taking place in Anniston Performing Arts Center in Anniston, Alabama. Tickets, $30 online, $35 at the door. They're very cheap. That's cheap. Our hosts, Tex Weston, speakers, Barton Nunnally, Daryl Denton, the Blondes and the Booze, Jason McLean, Greg Ogles, Martin Groves, and yours truly, BMR. Come check us out. On June 7th, we're having a meet and greet at a restaurant. You can find that on BamaBigfootConference.com. It's already booked. It's already sold out. However, we won't turn you away at the door. Neither will the restaurant. Come hang out with us before the event on the 8th. So thank you so much for that. And of course, don't forget, on Mondays is Texas Front Porch, 8 o'clock to 11 on Mondays, Eastern Standard Time. And then we move into Tuesday nights with good old BMR and my lovely co-host, Krista, Beyond BMR, 9 o'clock in the East. Wednesday is Inhumanoids with Barton Nunnally. He's on at 9 o'clock in the East. Thursday afternoon, right back here with Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob. Tonight, Thursday night, the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast. The days start at 9. And if you need more woo with the booze, you can catch the Blondes and Booze Friday nights at 8 o'clock as they present an also great show. And if you're into true crime, you know, Tex has got Infamous Minds, 6 o'clock in the East on Sunday. And our newer show, Truth or Tinfoil, with Randy and Brandy. That's a cool show that airs on Sunday as well at 6 o'clock in the East. So thanks for everybody for coming in on in. I appreciate all your support and coming in. And again, we do have a great show today slated for you. And without further ado, I am going to bring up the lovely Karin Wilkinson.
Hi,
Hello.
Rob.
Well, hello,
Hi, how are
Karin.
you?
How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm so happy to be here with you today. I feel like we're already old friends. I've just enjoyed talking with you so much.
You know, me too. And I could tell right away after several conversations via the text messaging and what have you. I said, "Yep, she's a good soul. I can't wait to
Thank
get her
you.
on."
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, I could tell immediately that you were someone I wanted to keep in touch with, that you're just such a good heart. Thank you so much. And I'm just so happy to be here. And sorry to hear that you're getting snow up in Michigan.
Oh,
Oh, my goodness.
well, we all can't live in Texas.
Yeah. We are getting rain here today, so it is not a beautiful sunny day in Texas, but it will be 80 degrees and sunny this weekend. So
Well, I envy
you can
you.
come on
Yeah,
down and enjoy that with me.
well, yeah. Well, I love. I've been to Texas several times with my buddy Tex, and a couple of conferences we put on. I like Texas. I like Alabama, where we're going to be in
Oh,
June.
yeah.
Beautiful state. I love it.
Love
And if
Alabama.
and Michigan, actually, Michigan. There's some knocks about Michigan, but I tell you what, Michigan is a beautiful
Oh,
state. We
yeah.
got the Great Lakes. We've got abundant forests north of where I live. And
Yeah.
the thing about Michigan is so weird because a week ago we had 70-degree weather. I was outside barbecuing, had my shirt off, trying to get that early suntan going.
Yeah.
And then a day later it goes from 70 to 30, and I'm shoveling snow. I don't, we don't, it doesn't snow often in Michigan anymore, which is weird because as a kid growing up, it seemed like we had a foot of snow every winter, right?
Right.
And in fact, I got rid of my snowblower because I only shovel once or twice a year, and it's right on par with that. So that's my weird state. I don't know.
Oh, I love Michigan. I've been there many times and it is beautiful. I mean, yeah, you've got the lakes and the beautiful forests and it's just in the seasons, it's just so beautiful. And I grew up in the Ohio area and we went up to Michigan a lot and yeah, I always enjoy being up there and it's just such a beautiful state. So, yeah,
Yeah,
it gets a
it.
little too hot here in Texas. I'll tell you, in the
Well,
summer we're looking to get out. So,
I have a friend that he retired from the army, and his last post was in Fort Worth. And I visited him one time, and I like the heat. I like hot weather. And he has a swimming pool. If you don't have a swimming pool in Texas, you're either in your pool or you got your AC all the way at 67 chilling out because
yeah.
that type of heat, I, you know,
Yeah, you can't be in it. No, it's we're
it's
either in the pool or inside and or leaving, going, we'll go to Florida to cool off. I mean, it just gets too hot
well,
down there.
yeah, that's funny. Go to Florida to cool off. Or you go sit down by the ocean and get that Atlantic Ocean breeze, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah. And we do have the Gulf Coast here in Texas, and that's really lovely too. I mean, we can go out to the coast and kind of get away, but we're kind of in the middle in Austin, so we get all the
y-
heat here for sure.
yeah, you sure do. And my brother goes to, I think, I don't know where it is exact, Clearwater on the Gulf
Oh,
side of
yeah.
Florida, and he enjoys that.
Yeah, the Gulf Coast of Florida is so beautiful. Beautiful beaches. I love it. If you can't find me, that's where you'll find me because that's my favorite place to be. So
Oh yeah.
yeah. But
So yeah.
anyway,
So anyway, yeah. So we a little icebreaker. I always do that anyway. We talk about other things
I
other
love
than the
that.
show. And
Right. I
here's the
love that.
thing. Before we get into your fabulous book, which I'll be promoting, and I'll show the jacket and stuff. Just
Thank
a
you.
little background on yourself, Karen. Then we'll get in and talk about your what you come up with.
Sure. Yeah. I'm just kind of an average person, the same as the all the other abductees that I've spoken with over the years who have been through a similar circumstance to mine. You wouldn't be able to pick us out of a crowd because we're just average everyday people. I'm a mom, a wife, a grandma. I worked in the tech industry for a long time, and when I had a near death experience, I went through some PTSD therapy because the events leading up to that were very traumatic. And that helped me start to deal with this lifetime of memories that I had. And I've always had these memories. I didn't go through any kind of hypnosis or anything like that. I just always remembered these things that happened to me. And that's when I met Ellie Marzulli. And that's how this whole thing started. I did an interview with him to share my story, which I never thought I would do. I was just terrified when I did that. He's the first person outside of my husband that I'd ever told what had happened to me. And when that became part of the fourth movie in his UFO series on the abductions, I people started wanting to talk to me and share their experiences. And I suddenly wasn't alone. And I was able to let other people know that they weren't alone. And I was able to let them know how I was able to stop this. And it was just such a freeing experience that I wanted to share that. And that's kind of how the book came to be. I never expected to write this, never expected to be talking about this with people, especially in this kind of a format. But what it's done is opened up an opportunity for me to really get in touch with others who've been through similar things. Because as you well know, and when you've had something like this happen, it's not well received. It's not something you can just go out and talk about. You can't go to a therapist or a friend and say, "Hey, this happened to me." There's a lot of ridicule, and you get told that you're delusional or you're crazy or what have you, and that's just not the case. We're just normal people who've had terrible things happen to us, and we deserve to be heard and we deserve to be healed. And that is my goal: is to listen and help in any way that I can.
We kind of have the same type of path because when I started out in life, I had nothing. I will preface this by saying I always had an open mind. As a kid growing up, I was into the monster movies right off the bat. My dad, Bela Lugosi, the vampire, Dracula, Boris Karloff, Frankenstein monster, Lon Chaney, werewolf. So I was brought up at an early age about monsters, and I just loved it, right? But I never thought that would be something that I would do something with later in life. We don't think that, especially as a kid. Then as a kid, I had a ghost encounter, and I'm not going to go through my resume, but where we're really we have a lot of commonalities is this. In 2018, when I had my traumatic encounter, I was lost, I was alone, I had nowhere to go. And literally for 6 months, I did stop going to my business. I had owned a business, I quit going to work. I told my manager, here are the keys, don't rip me off. I got to figure this out. And again, to trudge through life, worried about ridicule, worried about being judged, it puts you in a very dark spot. And it also makes you think that there's nobody around to help you.
Yeah.
So really the reason behind I'm doing this today and writing the book I wrote is just because I'm out there to help others. And it just sounds like you and I are the same pea in the pod because it sounds like that's what you want to do is help others.
Right. I mean, that's the only reason to write something like this, because you subject yourself to ridicule and to criticism. And as you and I both know, authors, it's not a big money making industry. That's not why we do it. We do it to share and to help for most of us.
Yeah.
And especially subjects like this, because they're not well received. But for those who need this information, for those who are looking for someone who has had a similar experience, every time I get an email that says, "Oh my goodness, I read your book and I feel like I was reading the story of my life. And now I feel like I have somebody who understands me," that makes it all worth it. That makes every bit of it worth it. And so I will keep doing this as long as there's people out there who need to know that they're not alone.
And that's the thing. I can't put a number on it, Karen. I mean, 100,000, a million, I don't know. But I
Probably
do
millions.
know probably a million because I do know this ever since I started doing this. And even after writing the book, the comments and emails that I get from people that say, thank you, that happened to me, or I didn't know where to go or turn. And a lot of these people, and for a lot of people, especially people, I'll have people come on the show primarily though that send me encounters and they want to be anonymous. But for them though, they tell me, much like for me, it serves as therapy
Yeah.
to talk this out,
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
you
Definitely.
know, and get it out there. And you you feel weird and odd when you very first do it, especially publicly or like on a
Oh,
live show. Like I did a
yes.
video and felt like a weirdo. I really did.
Yeah.
I wasn't weird. I wasn't losing my mind, but it's something that I had suppressed for so long. And it felt like the bricks were taken off my shoulders when I finally got out and started doing this.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And so yeah, so that's great way to start the show here. And with your book, it is Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest, right? So if
Yes.
you want to get into that, what's that all about? We can get into that and unveil this for my audience.
Sure. Yeah. Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest. It really is a book about my lifelong experiences being taken by non-human alien entities, and what I went through to get away from them and to finally understand who and what they were and what they wanted. and sharing that information in the book, along with some really amazing, beautiful, wonderful, miraculous things that have also happened in my life. So the book is not all scary, it's not all negative. There's a lot of really wonderful, positive things. And I relate back everything in the book to what it is and how I figured that out, and helping the reader understand what these things are, because I know you and I both agree, whether we're talking about aliens or cryptids or black magic or any of these things, we're all talking about the same thing. And when someone is attacked by forces of evil or dark forces, it's all really the same thing. And if we understand that, and we understand that we all have the same creator, then we understand that we can all get away from that, and that we can all find refuge, and that we can all find a safe place. And we don't have to be going to a specific church or believing in a specific way or living a specific kind of lifestyle. And we don't have to be subject to judgment and ridicule by others. We just have to know. And we have to live that kind of life in love and understanding that we are loved, and that God does want to protect us. And He doesn't care if we go to the church down the street or if we worship Him in our own special way. It doesn't matter. It's just about the fact that we're all His, and we're all important.
Why do you think that certain individuals, again, perhaps in your book, why
Hmm.
certain people are kind of picked out to be abducted or have these experiences?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of different reasons. It's for some people, it is your genetics. For me, it was, I think, a combination of things. I'm O negative blood type, and that was very important to them. From the time I was little, they always told me, you're special, you're important, and that. And I was put into what I call a breeding program, where I was used to create hybrid entities. And that is where the stolen seed, evil harvest part of the book comes in. Um, and so for some people, it's genetics. These entities are, you know, working with family lines, because once they find genetic material that works for them, they're going to continue on with that if they can. And in a family line, you're going to get someone, hopefully, that's going to have a similar genetic material to the predecessor of that person. I also had a lot of Masons and other types of things in my family that I think led to permissions being given. You talked about liking like the vampire and the Bela Lugosi type movies and stuff when you were young. There's a
Yes.
lot of truth to that, because everything in the universe is very legalistic and subject to certain rules and regulations. And permissions have to be given for you to be taken or for things to happen. It's like inviting the vampire over the threshold. Threshold covenants are a real thing. Salt covenants, blood covenants, all of that are real things. And so, somewhere along the line, someone gave permission for me to be taken, for me to be utilized, whether it was through the Greada Treaty, made by during the Eisenhower and the Majestic 12 kind of time frame administration, or whether it was through the Masonic lineage of my family, or who knows? It could have been someone outside of my family. I don't know. But I was responsible for breaking those covenants and for making sure that I let these entities know, hey, I figured out you've got the same creator I do, and I can tell you, you have to leave me alone, and you have to leave me alone. And that was the end of it. Once I did that, they were like, oh, shoot, she's figured it out. We can't touch her anymore. And they did keep trying. Let me tell you, they will keep trying. But once you figure it out, they can't touch you. They can't hurt you anymore.
You refer back to the 1947 Eisenhower Pact.
Hmm.
Now, if you study ufology and you're into aliens, if you're into the subject matter that we all are that listen to the show, watch the show, I think it's maybe 50-50, 60-40 split. Do you think that treaty really did exist? And why do you think that we traded technology for the abduction of humans, if that's the case, even the fact?
Yeah. Oh, I do think it really existed. There are enough documents that have been released, heavily redacted, but still they're out there, that show that groups like the Majestic 12 and these groups existed. Everything surrounding that time frame with Eisenhower and the supposed dental emergency that took him away for several days. And there's just so much information around it. And it makes sense because there's a definite uptick in abductions and people experiencing these things from that point forward, even though we do have recorded abduction and things like that back into the 1800s, which I have in the book and I talk about more in more detail. But I do absolutely think that that happened. And I think that this trading technology for humans and animals to experiment on is nothing new. All ancient texts, ancient scrolls, ancient religious texts, things like that, all have this same type of agreements being made back through as far back in history as we can find. So this is just something that's happened cyclically over and over again. These civilizations rise and then they fall, and they rise and they fall. And our rise in our civilization, the last 150 years, our technology has gone from horses and buggies to rockets and electric cars. I mean, it's crazy, the amount of forward motion that we've had, it doesn't make sense based on what we've done in the past. So clearly there was help.
It seems like it just blew up overnight within a
Oh,
decade.
absolutely. Absolutely.
And
It does.
I do subscribe to that theory that we had some help.
Oh, yes, definitely. Definitely. And there are enough organizations and enough whistleblowers who said, well, yeah, all that was back engineered, and enough things that just suddenly show up like lasers and different things like that, that out of the blue, we suddenly figured that out. No one can say how. Yeah, there's clearly evidence of back engineering all over the place. So, and from what I've experienced over my lifetime, like when I was really little and I would be taken, they would do this thing we call a screen memory, where they would show me something and it was so real. It looked as if you were there. And it was like wearing VR goggles, which we have today. But
Yeah.
back then I couldn't have imagined anything like that. And now today I'm like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what they used to do to me. Or there were rooms I would be taken into that were just nothing but screens. And so the whole thing was like watching a movie, but it was immersive. You felt like you were there, and they would show me scenes of like flooding or different things like that to try to get me, to continue in buying into their narrative, if you will. So the technology that I experienced as a small child was incredible. And then we didn't have anything like that here, so, and now to see it come to fruition, I'm like, oh yeah, I saw that when I was little,
Yeah, I know it's something that I've been wondering now. You got to take us back a little bit because everybody is fascinated. Well, at least I am. We talk about alien abduction stories. We've all heard the big ones out there, right? Timothy,
Mhm.
was it Timothy Walton, or what's his? There's a
Travis
few.
Walton. Travis
Yes,
Walton. Yeah.
yes, and such, which was incredible.
Hmm.
But for you, you have you on a show, a life person that's had this happen. You gotta walk us back.
Okay.
I can't imagine. Listen, I've had experiences. Don't think I've ever been abducted, but I don't know, to be
Yeah.
honest, right? None of us really
Right.
do. Some of us have been abducted and not even known it, all that.
Right. A lot
Talking
of
about
people
these
don't have
screen
it.
memories and such that we all pop up. I get these memories from a kid that pop into my head as an adult that I wonder about. But for you gotta take us back. What was that like? I mean, being on the craft, seeing these aliens. Were you scared? Were you in a different?
Yeah.
I can't. I'll
Yeah.
let you verbalize that. It's just
Okay. Yeah, I'll go back to, I was taken from my earliest memories and before my real concrete memories of the actual abduction experiences, which are from about 5 and 6 years old, which is normal for a child.
yep.
I remember being 2 or 3 years old, and I have these memories of being terrified of members of the family coming trying to pick me up because they were tall and blonde and fair-eyed and fair-skinned, and they looked like these Nordic entities that I was already encountering. And as a little tiny kid, you don't have the ability to discern between, details like the Nordics
Yes.
are so much bigger. And so even as a small child, I just have these memories of just being terrorized by whenever I would see certain family members. And no, my family were not aliens, but they had similar features. And as a little kid, I couldn't distinguish that. But then when I was about 5, 6 years old, that's when the memories of the actual abductions are more concrete. And it would generally happen at night, in the middle of the night. And if there was anyone else in the room, like a sibling or if parents were in the next room, anyone else in the home would just be shut down into a deep sleep state. And I could never wake anyone up. at nighttime, I would be so scared. I would always be looking for somewhere to hide. I
So
thought
this is in your home, correct?
this is in my home, yeah, and it
Yes.
didn't matter where it was. It could be my
Okay.
house, my grandparents' house, a friend's house. Wherever I went, they found me, and I used to look for places to hide. I thought if I could find a suitcase and put it under the bed and get in that and zip it up, we had zip up suitcases at the time, then maybe they wouldn't find me there. And, I had an older sibling who said to me, they can see us through the house. There's nowhere you can hide. So this is like a 5 and an 8-year-old having a conversation about them. Um, but we don't know what to call them. We don't have vocabulary for it at that time. We don't know who and what they are. I just know that it's happening to me, and I won't speak for other family members because if anyone else wants to talk about it, that's their
Yeah.
story to share. But for me, I didn't know what they were. I didn't have vocabulary like grays and aliens and saucers and things like that. I just knew they were the ones that came to get me. I was terrified. I didn't want it to happen. It was invasive. It was scary. And I tried to talk about it, but I didn't have good vocabulary to say what they were. But a typical scenario would be middle of the night. I would feel a change in the room. I would just feel an evil presence. It just that sense that you get when something is wrong or scary, And if we were in the countryside, sometimes the crickets and cicadas would just go silent. There are
Hmm.
times I remember seeing a light come through the window or a light come through the window that was down the hall from another room. Like I said, if there was anyone there, I wouldn't be able to wake them. I would get so scared. Sometimes I'd wet the bed or I'd cry, but no one would hear me. Um, and then I would see generally at least two, sometimes more, at least two though, of what people call a typical gray alien in my room. And they had the big bulbous heads and the little tiny necks that I was so freaky because it looked like it couldn't hold that head up. And
Yeah.
their eyes were like just screens, like a black lens. They didn't move. It didn't look like an eye. It just looked like a lens. Their mouths didn't open. Some of them didn't smell very good. Some had like a sulfury kind of urine, feces, dead animal smell to them, but some of them didn't have any smell at all. But sometimes I could smell them before I even knew they were there. Um, and these entities would appear in different areas of the room, sometimes hovering, sometimes at the foot of the bed or in the doorway or a corner. And just to see that face was just the most terrifying thing in the world. I spent a lifetime not being able to look out a window at night, not being able to walk through a house at night alone without a flashlight or a cell phone or the dog by my side or something because as an adult, as a grown adult with children and grandchildren, I still couldn't walk through the house alone at night because I couldn't look at a window. I couldn't even glance towards the window because I was afraid that face was going to be there. I'm not that way now. I have since been able to get over that mostly, but it's still
Well,
scary.
yeah, I got to ask you. First of all, I've heard a lot of abductions happen early, between 5, 6, 7 years of age,
Hmm.
which is approximately the age that you were.
Hmm.
So, growing up as a little girl, then getting a little bit older into teenagerhood and young adulthood, how did that affect you personally? Did you think you were different than everybody? Were you, and I'll ask this, you
Yeah.
don't have to answer. Were you like a little unstable? Did you feel?
Oh,
What did your
I
parents think
definitely.
about you?
Yeah, I felt very unstable. I was imported with a lot of knowledge, kind of downloaded with a lot of knowledge. So school was very easy for me, which was great because I could just retreat. But I was very reclusive and I tried to talk about it and they threatened me that they would harm my family if I talked about it to the point that they showed me a screen memory of my family being hurt in front of me. And
Oh,
I broke. I literally just
no
it
kidding.
broke me. And when I tell the story often, but it helps bring home the point of how I was feeling. I was about 6 years old, and they found me in school, huddled in the corner of a bathroom stall, just holding my knees and rocking. And I wouldn't talk, and I wouldn't get out. They had to call my mom to come get me. She coaxed me out of the bathroom, and I just kept saying, I don't want them to take me. I don't want them to touch me. I don't want them to hurt me. I don't want them to hurt you. They didn't know what I was talking about. And I couldn't help them any more than that. And I was afraid to say any more. I didn't want to be responsible for my family being hurt. So she took me to a doctor and he said, whatever's going on, she's young, she'll forget. And, this is in the 1960s and 70s. And that was understandable because they didn't have any clue what I was going through. And I realized at that point there was no one who was going to help me, no one to save me, no way I could get out of this. These entities are so much more powerful than we are. They can manipulate space, time, energy, matter in ways that didn't even make sense to me as an adult, let alone as a little kid. So I gave in. I gave up and I split. I disassociated 100%. I put that over here and life over there, and I just tried to go somewhere else in my head anytime that came up. I was still terrified all the time, but I had to learn to just separate and create
You know,
two of me. Create one of me that was just there for the good stuff, and one of me that dealt with the bad stuff.
so for people that don't know, is it when you disassociate, that's almost like having an alter ego, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh,
where you're just
absolutely.
totally in your own
Yeah.
different realm or reality, if
Correct.
you will.
Right, but I was completely in control of it. It
Yes.
was unlike maybe a normal, not normal, but like what they might call a multiple personality disorder. I knew that I could flip in and out of those at will. And to this day, there are times when I'm tempted to do that when something gets difficult or traumatic, but I don't let myself do that anymore. Because I can just and not. And that helps me when I'm sharing difficult memories for sure, but I have to allow myself to experience and deal with the things that have happened to me if I'm ever going to heal. And that really is a hard thing for those of us who've been taken because we've learned to just shove those things down and never allow ourselves to heal from it. And then every relationship I've ever had, everything I've ever done has been affected by this. The way I looked at love and relationships and everything. And it affected every part of my life, to failed relationships and to failed friendships and to just everything.
Mhm.
And so, the tech industry was great for me because I could just bury my head in a computer and do work and go and drink after work and forget the rest of the world, if
Right.
that's what I wanted to do. So it is very traumatic and traumatizing. And a lifetime of it is just, you know, to be able to stop it, like I said, that's why to be able to stop it and to meet other people who've been through it was so freeing for me. And it's so important for me to be able to share now with other people because I feel like I found my way out through the grace of God. I didn't do it on my own. This is all God. But the fact that I was able to be set free from it, I want to share that because I want other people to feel that sense of freedom because it is terrifying, as you know, and you've been through it.
Yes. And it's like, and didn't you have that, like I told you backstage, when you got familiar or found people that had similar experiences? Didn't that feel like just a ton of bricks was just taken off your shoulders? Because
Oh,
now there's somebody you can relate with and speak on this without feeling like a freak or just some person that's making up some elaborate story.
I will never forget. Yes, absolutely. That is such a good representation of what happened. And I will never forget that moment because my friend Ellie Marzulli, who has become an amazing, he and his wife friends to us. He is the one who I did the interview with, and my interview was part of that fourth movie on the UFO abductions. Well, there were four of us in that movie, and after he finished putting that movie together, he brought the four of us together in a Zoom call, and you can see that Zoom call at the end of the movie. This is the first time any of us had ever met each other. We had never spoken with each other. For most of us, we had never met anyone else who had had these things happen. There was another woman in there who went through the same missing pregnancies that I had gone through. And you can just see all of us were like giddy little children who finally can see for the first time, or who finally, you know, we just our first taste of freedom because we finally were not alone. And it was the most amazing, beautiful, wonderful hour of my life. And then we continued to get together after that. And we are all still very close because we share a bond now that is unlike anything we've ever had with anyone else. And now with other people who've been through similar circumstances, I get to share that kind of bond with just hundreds of other people across the world, people in England and Australia and South America. And I mean, this is not something that happens just here in the United States. This happens all over the world, all over the planet.
And what I find too about these bonds, now, of course, we all have our families, whether you're married, husband, wife, children, aunts, uncles. That is a bond with our family, depending
Right.
on your family upbringing, I suppose.
Hmm.
But the bond with the people that walk in your shoes, my shoes, people listening, that's just more of an intimate bond, isn't it? That you find?
Oh, oh, it is because you're brought together not by obligation, but you're brought together by something that's connecting your heart and something that's connecting your sense of self and your understanding. So it's such a strong connection. Like you and I, before I even knew about your experiences, we already felt that connection and we didn't know why. Well, now we know, because
Yeah,
we have a similar connection, and it creates something in you that you can see and sense in others. And it's wonderful because those are genuine. Those are genuine bonds. You have to, well, I love my children, don't get me wrong, but
oh
those
yeah,
are bonds I have because they're my children, my flesh and blood, and that's something that's very specific to being a parent. Um, and I love other friends because we have just, relationships. I love my husband because we chose to be with each other. But for me and you, this is something that was unexpected and becomes a bond that we'll have forever because we have something very unique that brought us together, and it's true and it's real, and it's not for any nefarious purposes. It's just because out of love and kindness that we become friends.
absolutely. I can agree totally. I totally get you. I got you from day one. And let me ask you about the alien. Now, first, let me backtrack. When you're in this craft, was there any discernible things you could talk about? Another thing that fascinates me is about these UFOs, flying saucers, if you
Hmm.
will, way back a term from the 70s.
Yeah.
What type of environment was inside the craft? Were you just in when you always hear about the steel or the white wall? You're on a
Hmm.
gurney. There's no windows. You can't see out into quote unquote
Hmm.
outer space. I mean, if you kind of get an idea what your environment was like.
Yeah, I was taken on craft to be taken to somewhere.
Okay.
And these craft, the only way I can describe them is that they were living. They were alive. They were as alive as anything else. They moved when you moved around them. You could see through them as if they were translucent. They reacted to thought and movement. Um, but I was taken where I was taken for when I was examined or when things were happening underground, because I would
Oh,
be taken to these banks of elevators, and we would get in, and my whole life, same scenario. And these elevators went down and down and down. And then we would get in what I called when I was little the sideways elevators because they were silent. And when I was growing up, all vehicles made noise. If it was a train, a bus, a car, whatever, they were loud, they were noisy. 60s and 70s were not quiet times for vehicles. We had no electric cars. So it was some
you
kind of
didn't you didn't need any vehicles in the 60s and 70s. I wasn't born quite yet, but it was like the flower power children. That was their vehicle.
yeah.
You know, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. No, but yeah, this was different than anything I had been on. And so I realize now it was some kind of a tram or a train or something like that. And then there were these areas that I was taken. So I know at this point I'm underground because there's no windows or anything like that. And it's huge. I mean, there's these facilities are the sizes of football stadiums and airports and schools and everything all put together. There are giant, enormous rooms, and there are small rooms. There are hallways. There are elevators. There are stairs. Just everything you can imagine. There are areas that were really old and were carved into stone, like old cave type areas with those types of passageways and rooms, and then there were areas that were just extremely modern. So in over a lifetime of seeing these areas, there's just so many different things to them. And then while I was there, they were all different kinds of entities. The little grays that picked me up, they're like cookie cutter. They all look the same. They, I believe, are a biological construct, like an avatar meat suit. We can create skin in a lab, and that's what I think these things were. And I think they're created to house maybe AI or another entity or a demon, what have you. I've written a lot about that, and there is a chapter on that in the book.
Yeah. Let's revert back to that a little bit, because I have a lot of friends, a lot of acquaintances, and the people I've spoken with. When you talk alien,
Hmm.
I don't care if it's the Gray or the Nordics or whichever one you want to come up with. You think it's Do you think they're from another world, or do you think they're actually demons?
I think that aliens I think we all have the same creator. I'll start there. Okay.
Okay.
And I think that, my religious text, the biblical text tells us, and ancient scrolls tell us, and other religious, all religions and sects all over the world tell us that there's a fallen and there's the non-fallen. So there's the good and the evil. So you can call it whatever you want. For me, I call it fallen angels.
Okay.
These alien entities, I believe, are fallen angels. And then what's becoming more common in conversation is the term Nephilim. And a Nephilim is the progeny of a fallen angelic being and a human. That is in the Christian Bible in Genesis 6. It is in extra canonical books like Enoch and Jasher and so many others. And when those entities were created, that was an abomination. And when they died, these texts tell us they were neither of the heavenly angelic realm or the human realm, because they were half and half. And so their souls, their spirits, I'm sorry, were um, doomed to wander the earth without a body. And that's where we get demons, and those are demons. And I believe that's what's inhabiting those gray suits. And then the rest of them, and the other entities that I've encountered, they're all different. There are grays, but they're not like these little cookie cutter grays. They're different as humans are. Some are taller, some are shorter, some are wider, some are thinner, some look very feminine, some look very masculine, some are huge. There are reptilians, and they all look different. There are insectilians, and they all look different. There are Nordics, and they all look different. And everyone gets this idea of this Marvin the Martians coming out, and they all look the same. Well, for the little grays, that's kind of true, but they are just kind of like I said, an avatar suit. So they're intended to all look the same. But for the rest of them, no, they're all very unique entities, the same as humans are unique entities. Um, so that, I don't know. And when I was there, when I
No.
was taken, not only were there all those, but there were humans working with them. So there were, a lot of different entities there.
You can talk about aliens and other worlds and galaxies and all the different experiences people had with being abducted.
Mhm.
And again, I'm not much read up on it, but there's 20, 30 different alien species, I guess, that I've read somewhere.
Right.
So what do you think, though, it is with these aliens or with being abducted? And what do you think their agenda is? What do you think the agenda is for this?
Right. I think there are a couple of different things at play here. The late Dr. Chuck Missler used to say, Satan's outnumbered 2 to 1. He's building an army. And if these are, in fact, the fallen angels, as I believe them to be, then they are looking to beef up their ranks. So anyone that they can get to believe that these are benevolent space brothers, any offspring that they can create from us and get to be with them, is going to be a part of their ultimate, group of, and be with them. So I believe that that is part of their agenda. The other part of the agenda, I believe, is just to deceive and to lead people astray. Um, they really, I can't call them benevolent. I don't disparage anyone who has different thoughts on this to me. So
Of
please
course.
don't think that, because anyone who speaks about this, it takes an incredible amount of
Well,
courage,
in
and
they
we
do,
all have different experiences.
and before you move on with that, I will say this, because everyone that knows me, and I agree with your statement, there's a lot of people that believe that Bigfoot is the friendly forest giant, which I do not agree with, and I get flack for that because I don't trust Sasquatch or Bigfoot.
Mm-mm.
Probably because of what happened to me, but I'm just not going to trust something I know nothing about even though I've been
Right.
researching it for 5 years, don't have a clue.
Right.
So with that being said, I get where you're coming from here.
Right. If they were so benevolent and trustworthy, why wouldn't they sit down with us? Come on out, hang out, find somebody who thinks that these are benevolent creatures. Then those are the people you can contact because they'll sit down with you. Go ahead, record an interview, in private. But that's not happening. And that's how I feel about these entities as well. I don't think benevolent behavior is kidnapping and terrorizing little children. If you kidnap your neighbor's kid, you're going to jail. It is not okay to do that. Raping women, stealing fetuses, mutilating cattle and other innocent animals and sheep, that's not benevolent behavior. If they are our benevolent space brothers here to help us, then come down, sit down with our leaders, talk about ways that we can be better humans, more loving, more kind to each other, that we can save the planet if that's what needs to happen. We all know that these nuclear facilities have been shut down. You don't need us to shut them down. They can do that without us. They are much more powerful than we are. And
Yeah, did you hear about that story? It's briefly off topic, just a little bit, but since you brought it up, it kind of resonated about how there was many times during the Cold War where that button was pressed by one of our sides. But you know what happened? The I guess I don't know if it's the Intergalactic, Federation, but they shut that down, right?
right.
You
Yeah.
you know that you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I
Thank
absolutely
you,
do.
1, 2, 3, 4 for gifting that Bigfoot Mission pirate membership. And
Oh,
Diane, she believes we're not alone. And thank you for being a member for 2 months, Diane. Thank you so much. Thanks to
I
everybody.
want to be a pirate too. I want to be a
Well,
pirate
well,
member.
you can. You can
I'm going to
join a
do
little
that.
later if you can. Yeah.
Yes, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna be my pirate, y'all,
Right.
and I'm gonna see all you guys because
Okay.
I love this group of people. It's so super. It's amazing. But yeah, I mean, yeah, there's too many reports, official reports of these facilities being shut down for us not to believe for us to believe otherwise. So they don't need us to shut the nukes down. They can
Yeah,
do that
right.
already.
They
You
can't.
know.
And again, they probably they did that. And thank you, 1, 2, 3, 4 for that $2. I do appreciate it. Love you all. Thanks for the
Oh,
support of the channel. Um. So yeah. So there's so much to unpack with this. Why don't we? I want to pull up something really quick here. Well, let me. I gotta find this first.
yeah.
So
But
talking about your book a little bit now, for people that haven't read the book, we're at the 49-minute mark, and this might take a little bit longer, and I'll put up my finger. But you state in the book that non-human alien entities are intervening with humans in an attempt to corrupt the human bloodline,
yes.
and that's is that the dark agenda of Satan and his cohorts? What do you mean by that? And is that part of the Nephilim? What you were talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. Any entity that is the progeny of or the offspring of a human and a fallen angelic being, that is referred to as a Nephilim, or you can call it a hybrid. Nephilim is an older term, modern day Nephilim, but a hybrid might be something that makes more sense. And so, yes, because that's what they've done with me, and I have spoken with so many other people, women who've been through the exact same thing. I have held one of those babies. I have seen the adult children, and they were not kind. They were not benevolent. They were evil. And I do believe that that is a big part of it. Anything they can do to lead us astray, to lead us away from the truth of ultimately what it is that, we all have the same creator. We just need to be good to one another, love one another, be kind to one another, and stop all the infighting and stop all that. But even by this benevolent space brother stuff, they're creating infighting, and groups of people where people who have been taken, we need to support one another, not fight with one another. That's why I don't disparage anyone who has a differing opinion to me. I'm just going to love and support you in that.
Well, no, I agree with you 100% because I think that there's too many people that well, I don't care if it's the paranormal field, ufology, cryptids. I find today what bores me, to be honest with you, there's too many people that do their research or they conduct their business with blinders on. And
Yes.
the minute you disagree with somebody, the minute you disagree, It happens all the time in the cryptid world. Ape versus flesh and blood versus the paranormal, the supernatural. It's either this, it's just this way. It's only this way. I'm not in the aper camp, by the way. But those people that have been doing this for 30 and 40 years that have yet to change their opinion
Mhm,
tells me they're not doing any credible research for one, because we need to evolve. I
mhm,
always mention about a buddy of mine, Ron Moorhead. He's in the cryptid game. He's a Sierra Sounds guy. He told me 20 years ago, Rob, if you just said that you think that Bigfoot is part of the woo or paranormal, I'd have told you, young man, to go home.
mhm.
Today, he now thinks he's gone full circle. Flesh and blood, yes, but however, there's something else about him. He talks about the quantum theory, where they
Oh,
convert
yeah,
mass
quantum
into
physics.
energy. Yes. Also
Every
talks about perhaps them being aliens.
Mhm. And
So
what are
yeah,
aliens? Just
and what
follow
are aliens?
interviews.
Yeah,
They're all the same thing.
it's all
You
the
hit that
same
nail on the
thing.
head.
And with
Exactly.
that being said, really, it's that 52-minute mark, and I'm just going to do the little thing here for the podcast. Thanks everybody for subscribing to Bigfoot Mission Rob on YouTube. Subscribe to the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast on YouTube. Subscribe to Texas Front Porch. I have all of Karen's links to her website. Her books can be found in the description of the show. So at the end of the show, go check out Karen, buy her book. It's awesome. Don't forget, I'm on 1 o'clock in the East on Thursday, and of course 9 o'clock at night. Don't forget to buy my book. Don't forget to subscribe. If you're new here, please subscribe. I want to thank really quickly 1, 2, 3, 4 for becoming for gifting a membership for the $2, and Diane for a 2-month membership. It does help support what we do around here. I love you all. I appreciate it. You don't have to do that, but those who do, I take it. I'm very humbled by that. So thanks so much. Now we're done with that. But yeah, I don't like people that are closed minded. I guess I'll just say that.
No, this is so far outside of our understanding. And if you try to fit all of this supernatural and all of these things into the little world that we live in, you're never going to have the right answer. And we're not going to have those answers because we really do exist in this three-dimensional earth and with time and everything else the way it is. But that is not what the universe is. And if get buy a little thin quantum books, quantum physics for dummies, or anything else like that, and just take a look into quantum physics, and you'll start to see that we just kind of barely scratch the surface of understanding that, but it will open up the world a little bit. But yeah, there's just these things are interdimensional. They can exist across dimensions in two forms at the same time, in different places at the same time, outside of time. And so we can't force it into our world. It'll never make sense. I see a question that we've only heard
Yeah, I was gonna
Americans
pull that
being
for
abducted.
Scott.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of people being abducted all over the world. I have podcast interviews that I do in Australia, in England, and all different countries. And I have talked to people all over the world who've been taken in every country you can imagine. I haven't kept track. I should probably get a map and put stick pins in it for that. But honestly, it would probably make me sad to see how many. But yeah, I have heard of people all over the world. This is not isolated to America. You hear about it here because we do have a kind of free press and some level of ability to speak freely with each other. And so you get a little bit more sharing in some of these countries than you do in others. But there are some countries, if you were to come forward with this, someone's going to be knocking on your door and you're going to be in trouble. So you will not hear about it in those countries. But it does happen. It does happen. There are stories that go back, 100 years from people in Mexico and England and China and Africa, all different countries. And I still hear from people today in different countries. So,
Absolutely. And again, this is in your book, Karen, and you sense, and maybe this is something when I was reading through, I really didn't understand what it was. And you talk about definitions in your book:
mhm.
ectogenesis and panspermia.
Oh, yes.
Is
So,
that's something with alien abduction, I am assuming?
yes, definitely. So, panspermia is favorite term of the ancient alien crowd. And what that is they feel like life on Earth came out of the primordial ooze and showed up on a comet, or was we were seeded here by another race, that kind of thing. And basically, what that does is it takes the creator out of the equation. And if you start to believe that, then you're not going to call on your creator if you want to get this evil away from you, right? So it's definitely one of those things that is out there that I do not agree with, and it's going to deceive people into thinking they don't have a way out of situations like this. So, and then as far as ectogenesis goes, that is something that we can do today. But if you had talked about it maybe 15, 20 years ago, people would be like, what? And that's an artificial womb where you can take a fetus and bring it to fruition in an artificial womb outside of a human. I saw this in the facilities they took me to in my 20s when they took me to hold one of my hybrid babies. I saw rows and rows down a hallway of what looked like aquariums, like you would see in a fish store, filled with what looked like fetuses. And I don't know if they were human, if they were alien, if they were hybrid, if they were animals, I don't know what they were. They looked human, some of them. And that is a form of ectogenesis. And if I, had talked about that 30 years ago when I first saw it, people would be like, well, that's impossible, but now if you look it up online, artificial womb, you'll see we have artificial wombs. We can do that. So that is definitely something that it helps those of us who've been taken and who've gone through this, because then it helps show the progression of the things that we've experienced actually are real, and they are out there, and we are doing those things today.
Here's a question regarding the hybrid babies,
Hmm.
and you were used as a what were you
Incubator?
used? Yes, thank you. I lost my mind for a moment there.
No, that's right.
Let me ask you this: do you think any of your hybrid children have paid you a visit?
Oh, they have. Yes, I
Oh
have.
wow!
I write about that in the book.
Oh
I
wow!
wanted to see them. I thought because they were half me that there was going to be enough good in them that I could help them, that they could exist with me, that I could show them how to be good, kind, loving individuals, right? They used them after I had been able to stop the abductions. I still wanted these kids. I knew they were still out there, right? Because I had seen the babies. Um, and I just knew it's a mom's instinct. I knew. So I prayed and prayed and prayed to God to let me have them. And I kept hearing God say, no, 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 no,
Mhm.
no. But I didn't care. I still wanted them. Be careful what you pray for, folks. I woke up one night, middle of the night. Do I have time to tell this story? Are we good on time?
No, you're good. Keep going.
Okay. So I woke up in the middle of the night, and there's three of my kids standing by the bed. The first thing I think when I wake up is that it's my current children, my boys. And I say one of my boys' names out loud. And then I look at them and realize, oh, wait, these aren't my boys. They're not tall enough. My boys are taller, and they're all not living at home at the moment either. So it couldn't have been all three of them, right? And as I'm kind of, getting my vision clear, look at them, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's my kids. And I hit my husband. I'm like, hey, wake up, look, look. And he is in that out cold state where I cannot wake him up, and I'm trying to wake him up. So I look back over at the boys. There's three of them. They're about 5 foot tall, maybe a little taller. They're wearing what looks like gray hooded shirts. Their skin almost looks blue. Now it's dark in the room, so it's hard to tell. But their skin looked kind of blue, and their eyes looked black. But again, I didn't have any light shining on them for me to see very clear. But I could tell from their features and just looking at them, I knew they were my kids. I can spot my kids when they're in the military. I can spot them in a sea of
Oh
other
yeah.
cadets. And it's just a mom. Even my
Mhm.
adopted son, I can pick him out too. It's a mom thing. It's a love thing. So I'm like, oh my gosh, it's you. I'm so excited. And I just feel hate
Mm.
and anger and contempt coming off of them. They are looking at me like they want to kill me. I'm like, what? What's wrong? And they're like, and they're doing mind speak. Like, you have to come with us. I'm like, no, I'm not coming with you. I'm never going back there. but you can stay here with me. They're like, no, you have to come with us. You have to come with us. They just keep saying that. I'm like, no, I'm not going with you. You can stay with me, but I am not going with you. And the evil and the hate, it was palpable. And I'm just thinking, what? Why do you hate me? And they keep just saying, you have to come with us. And it's just like habitual. I'm like, no, in Jesus' name, no. And that just kind of came out habitually. And the second I said in Jesus' name, no, they're gone. And that same second, my husband sits straight up in bed. He's like, what? And I'm just like, oh, why couldn't you have woken up to see that? But he was put into that sleep state. There was no way he was going to wake up, and they were
Yeah.
gone. And, that was really emotional and difficult. And I cried after that because I really felt lost, but I also had closure. And
Okay.
I knew that there was nothing there for me. I'm not going to say whether they can be redeemed or helped or not. That's not for me to decide. That's for God to decide. But I knew there was nothing there for me. And I got my answer and I got that closure. And I really believe that was a huge blessing that I got to have that interaction, because as emotionally difficult as it was to let them go, I no longer felt like I had anything to hold on to.
Okay.
And that was really hard as a mom because I wanted something
Mm. Yeah,
and to see them. But, sorry.
it's okay.
What this is what they don't get, that we love so deeply and they don't do that. And that's what's missing. That's what's missing. Sorry. That's what's missing from them. And then maybe they're trying to manufacture that. Maybe they're trying to figure that out. Or maybe that's why they hate us so much, because they don't love the way we do. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe the fallen are just fallen so far that they've forgotten what love is. I don't know.
And
But
really, it's just that I
sorry.
guess you're fine. I appreciate it. Thank you. You're fine. And everybody in chat certainly appreciates that. You won't be the first one that had a little tear shed on the phone.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's because you're not human, right? I mean, even though, yes, okay, maybe part of some of these are with what happened to you, right? But they're
Yeah.
just here for, like we talked earlier, their agenda, and they're here to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Again, it's still hard for me to fathom what they're here to. I know you laid it out what you think, but
Yeah.
that end game is still hard for me to wrap my hands around because it's
It,
just so out there.
yeah. I really think it's a seed war. I do go through that in the book. And in the end of the book, I have a couple chapters that really go through some scenarios that help kind of solidify that and help it make sense. So I kind of walk through it, what it would look like and how it would come to be, and it to help kind of bring that thought process home, because it's very complicated and it's hard to wrap your head around it. So I'm hoping that if anyone reads it, that'll help them understand more of the agenda, because it's certainly not something you can explain in a 30 or 60 or even a 2-hour
No,
conversation.
you certainly can't. And I got to tell you something. This is what I love about the people in my chat room. People listen. Shelley McCarthy makes such a humanistic and a true statement for all of us as humans and loved ones. We all love each other, right? Go ahead and cry because we can.
Thank you,
And that
Shelley.
is what we can. We can
Yeah,
cry.
yeah,
I've cried when I first started telling my Bigfoot encounter. There's a couple embarrassing. Now yours was not embarrassing at all, but I'm saying I had an
yeah,
embarrassing moment where once I first started telling my encounter, what happened to me, and I experienced the loss of a loved one. Well, I didn't tell you that. You don't know my story as of yet, but
no, I don't.
that's, we do that some other time. We could talk later, whenever.
Yeah,
But
I want to know your
I,
story.
yeah, so the first 2 or 3 shows I did on a podcast. First one was on the radio, so you didn't see my face. But I cried on that, and I had to pull it together. In fact, it was cool because it was a podcast, so he could edit out. But I said, if I was a podcaster and I wasn't a podcaster, then leave the emotion in it, because without the emotion, it's nothing. That's what makes the show, because it shows people these things really they affect us. So I
Yeah,
cry like a baby on a lot of shows, and even like this, visually. I had tears several times. And I got to tell you, I told my story about 6 months ago. And for whatever the reason was, Karen, and this happened in 2018, I've told my story 1,000 times, probably. Okay. And for whatever it was during the holidays, this past Christmas. I was on a show, started telling my story, and tears started streaming down my face. I was so embarrassed.
Oh,
But I pulled it together. I wasn't, but it's because again, what we talked about earlier in the show, you do this to help. I do this to
mhm,
help. So I still have that connection emotionally with what happened to me.
right,
And that's
right.
what people don't get, that have no idea about what we're talking about here. We don't believe in the phenomena. We know
Oh,
the
yeah,
phenomena.
exactly. Exactly. And I think because I'm with someone like you, it was okay for me to be emotional. I don't have my guard up when I'm with you. I'm with a friend. So that's why I got emotional and and that says a lot and I'm glad that I could be comfortable to do that with you because
Yeah,
sometimes you have to let that emotion out otherwise it just builds up and like I tell people sometimes I do a couple of interviews in a day and then I'll just go off and cry somewhere for an hour, you know,
you know,
because it's so much built up emotion and you just have to hold it together and everyone's like, "Oh, I thought you'd be crazy, but you're so together and you're so professional." And I'm like, "Well, you know, I'm trying to put that forward, but I am breaking inside." You know?
well, today, I can do my story pretty much and not tear up, even though it just did happen over Christmas. But I got to tell you, you're right, because what I saw in 2018, I kept inside me for like 6 months. 6 months. I didn't tell my family. I didn't tell friends. I didn't tell my manager that why I was leaving work. I just said it's stuff to figure out. And then what sucked for me, to be perfectly frank, is this: I couldn't find anybody I trusted. I started venturing on YouTube. I started venturing on the internet, trying to find somebody to help. And I gotta tell you, a lot of these people, either A, they thought I was full of crap, which told me they weren't truly into Bigfoot, right? They were just wanting to hear a story and have a laugh. Until it took
Right.
so long to find somebody that's told me this: Rob, you're not going crazy. I know what you went through. And then they turned me on to a tree, if you will, of other people, which is finally how I found the right connections to help
Goodness.
me through this. But it took me forever, forever.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that difficulty. It's hard to find the people and because I think there are some people who want it to be a certain way. They want Bigfoot to be this kindly, gentle giant that's going to come out of the forest and save a child.
Yeah.
Well, why,
It's
I
probably
want it to be that way
happened.
too, and it's probably happened, but that doesn't mean that that's
It probably
wasn't
happened. It doesn't mean they go into his home and have a campsite in the middle of
Mhm.
where his domain.
Right,
It's like me coming in your house and sitting down on the lawn chair and eating a sandwich.
right.
Hey, how you
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, if even a ferocious animal, if they see a child in distress, a human child will likely and oftentimes instincts kick in and they will rescue that child. But once that child's not in distress, watch out because then the natural instincts are going to kick in again and that child's going to be in danger. So, because you've ever seen the videos of like children falling into an ape enclosure at the zoo and they get, it'll get picked up by the mama, and that's an unusual situation. But, if that child was okay, then that child's going to be a threat.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think with these abductions that are going on, these hybrids, these creations, do you think when it comes with some certain aliens or races of aliens that they've got an agenda, a specific plan for each of their concubines? Like maybe somebody's going to go out in the world and be a report. I don't know where I'm going with this, but do you think there's certain aliens developed that are put on this planet for a specific reason? Maybe
Mm,
they're an evil person. Maybe they're a government. Maybe they end up penetrating our government as a
Right.
politician or perhaps a serial killer.
Oh, absolutely. I think that people can be possessed or oppressed by demonic entities. And I think that answers a lot of questions about things like that that happen. I think that there could be hybrids walking among us. I've had friends who've had encounters with hybrid humans who look just human enough or who can change their appearance because again, you got to look back at quantum physics to understand that they have abilities outside of ours and so they can change their appearance. So yeah, I absolutely think that's going to have a lot to do with our future and the way things are happening. And I think they're already among us. Dr. David Jacobs has a book out called it's been out for a long time called Walking Among Us. I have the book. I have not read it. I tried to read it, but it was just too difficult because the stories were too close to home. Um, for me, I don't read UFO books. I don't watch UFO movies. I don't or alien things because I've never been able to because they're so difficult for me to watch. I am trying to now because I get so many questions about them, and I'm trying to be able to allow myself to watch them without getting upset or scared. And so I'm trying to watch more and read more of those books. But it's too hard for some of them because it's what I've experienced and it's reliving it
Yeah.
and 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 so I try not to do that in the book. I don't want this book for someone who's experienced these things to feel like they're having to relive their experiences. So I am very careful in the book and I do let the reader know if this kind of things bothers you, go ahead and skip this part, and go to the next part because the next part's good. Next part's going to be happy, and
Well,
so I try to help the reader through if there are difficult parts for them.
what's great about the book is it's got the good, the bad, and the ugly, just like the
Yeah,
movie, right? I mean, really,
right.
because, you know,
Yeah, I need that. I if
if
the
you're,
whistle, I would
if
do it.
I also I subscribe to this theory. If I'm reading a book and all it is singing "Happy Birthday," you know,
Yeah.
and it's nothing but fun and jollies, I ain't into that. You got to give me the good, the bad, and the ugly with all this.
Amen.
Not
Yeah.
you do. For those of you just joining us, you got to watch the replay of the show. Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest with author Karin Wilkinson and Ellie Marzulli wrote the forward to this, and we haven't really spoke on him. And he was a big talking about help. He gave you a lot of help during on this journey, did he not?
Oh gosh, yes. He was the first person I shared with. That was where my interview happened. The first time I ever shared with anyone. That was what the fourth movie became was centered around the interview that he did with me, and that's how I met these three other people that were in that movie. He put us together, and he created this environment where we were safe. And then he listened, and my dedication is to him in the book. It says to Ellie Marzulli, who listened, who believed, and who was always there for me, because no one had ever done that before, except for my husband. But I didn't expect him to understand the same way. But Ellie has been a researcher and in this type of field for so long, and his strength and his courage and his understanding, and he and his wife. I have to include Peggy in this. They they were paramount to me being able to do this. And so and then Vicki Joy Anderson, who is the other author's book that L.A. Marzulli publishes, she has a book called They Only Come Out at Night. And it's exposing the dark side of sleep paralysis. And that book,
Oh,
she's
jeez.
amazing. I'll have to get you in touch with her if you haven't spoken with her before, because she is amazing. Talk about understanding threshold covenants and agreements and the vampire thing and everything. She's brilliant and she
Right
helps
up my alley.
so much. Yeah. Yeah, we'll get you in touch because you will love her. She will love you.
And
I can
I've
tell you right now, you guys will hit it
yes.
off. You'll be
Well,
best
thank you.
friends.
And I gotta tell you right now, I suffer from some form of sleep paralysis. I know. I have these dreams that aren't they're real dreams. I think astral projected
Yeah.
literally. I've seen I'm sitting in a chair and actually I was doing something I shouldn't be doing because I was told that that's a no. I was experimenting with a meditation and I was reading up on how to actually astral project.
Oh.
And yes, I'm not doing it anymore. Okay.
That's all right. It's tempting. I get it. I get it.
And,
That's all very tempting.
I was trying for weeks on end.
Mhm.
I finally got somewhere, and I was
Yep.
sitting in a chair. It was late at night, 3:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. I was doing this meditation. Then all of a sudden, I know I'm crawling down my hallway. I know it's me. I'm on all fours, but I'm crawling down my hallway. I'm
Oh,
thinking, what the
wow.
hell am I? I'm like, what in the hell am I doing,
Right by
Rob?
crawling. Yeah.
So I stop on my knees and my hands, and I stop, Karen. I look over my shoulder, and I see my physical body still sitting in the chair. I about lost it.
Mm.
And I snapped out of it, and my conscious form, my physical form, was now sitting back in the chair.
Oh,
And I gotta tell you, I've been scared, or I don't know if scared is the right word. I've been like, whoa, had some experiences that really blew my mind. And I gotta tell you, I had a mind blowing Bigfoot encounter, but I gotta tell you, this experience, I think, was a little more creepier than that.
I would,
To
yes.
see
For someone who's
myself
been taken into an astral, I've had an
now,
astral abduction.
so I don't
Oh,
know
it's
if I
scary.
astrally projected. I don't know
Sounds
if
like it.
I think I was hitting on the outset of it.
Yeah, that sounds definitely like an astral projection.
And if
Absolutely.
you don't know where you're going, you could travel into places you don't want to be if you don't know what you're doing, which I was told later, right?
Right. Yeah, and you're dealing with beings who are stronger and smarter and have been around a lot longer than we have, and who can do a great deal of damage. And so we're playing in the big kids playground, and we're little kids, and we got no business being there. And I always tell people the bad guys don't announce themselves. They don't walk around with a t-shirt saying, "Hey, I'm a carjacker," or "Hey,
You know,
I'm a thief, I'm a robber." They don't do that.
you
They
know
hide
what?
and hide.
They're lurking around the corner, much like a carjacker, but so are
Hmm.
these other entities, whether you want to call
Right.
them alien or dark shadow people or and human beings, The
Hmm.
411, that's another topic for another time,
Oh,
but
yeah.
I think the 411 is comprised of everything we talked about on this show and
Yeah.
more. I also think it's comprised of the human element, right?
Hmm. Oh, yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
also comprised of we didn't talk about this today. Well, I'll have you back on again because there's
Yeah.
so much
We will
we can go
definitely.
over. Portals, walking through
Yeah.
portals. I did a story about a guy that walked through a portal. In 2023, he walked through a portal, and the elementals of the forest let him home. I mean, there's so much out there.
Wow.
There's so
Yeah.
much out there.
There is. There really is. And yeah, it is. It is amazing and confusing and fascinating and terrifying and sometimes beautiful all at the same time. And
You know,
I've
and
had angelic encounters, I've had near death experience, I've had all these different things. So I have a lot of basis for comparison, and we can certainly talk about that another time because yeah,
yeah, we
there's
can't.
there's a lot
I
to
know.
it.
Oh, there's a lot, and I could talk to you for another 5 hours. But let me
I'm
ask you
like,
this though. Let me ask you this though. I mean, the book, it's a big book. It's a wealth of knowledge is found in the book. What though would you like to talk about the book specifically that maybe we missed on? I know you can't do everything in an hour and a
Right.
half, but
Mhm.
what about the book do you want to point out to everyone listening that you're most proud of, or what you would like to speak on? Because we've still got another 8 minutes or so.
Oh, cool. Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. I think I'm just really humbled by all the really positive response I've received from the book. And what I want and what I'm most grateful for with the book is that it has reached people on a personal level and helped them figure out things that they weren't sure how to get out of or how to figure out or what to do with. So it's answered a lot of questions for people. And for me, and it's allowed people to understand they're not alone and that it's okay to have these conversations. And it's also helped people who haven't had experiences understand that they can be a friend to someone who has, and they can just listen, and they don't have to believe, they don't have to know, they don't have to have had those experiences themselves, but you can be a support and you can listen and you can help them just by listening and saying, it's okay, I'm here for you, whatever you need, and that's all. For most of us, we really just want someone to listen and just to know that we're being heard and that these conversations are okay to have. And so for me, I think that's the most important part of the book.
No, I think that's awesome. And let me ask you this: Is there how many? Is there a follow up to this, or do you have another
Yeah,
book in the works?
I do. I am. I have a follow up in mind. Now, this just came out in October, so we're still getting this one out there. So we're not ready for the second one yet, but I do know what the second one is going to be right now, and I won't. I don't want to give away the farm on that, but it
Gotcha.
is
I
going
gotcha.
to continue. It's going to basically be a continuation from this one with some further um, explanation. I'll go a little deeper and add some stuff that I don't have in the first one. And it's going to have, because I've had so many women come forward with similar stories, it's going to focus more on the stolen seed evil harvest part of this and what other women have gone through, because there's so much proof out there. There are so many women who've gone through this, and they just want their stories to be heard. They want their voices to be heard, and men too, because men have been
Yeah,
abused in a similar way.
I was going to ask you something because I know I got to ask you this question now because
Mhm,
you just it resonated, and you're I think women, and I'm just speculating here, are
mhm,
probably often more abducted than men because of the
mhm,
breeding system.
mhm.
You think that's a true statement, or you think it's
Yeah.
50-50, or you think it's more women
Um,
than men?
I think it's what I'm hearing from more women than men, although I hear from a lot of men who have had their sperm taken in the same way
Yeah.
we have our ovum taken. And so how they're utilizing that, I think they're just taking both the sperm and the ovum, and then they're putting their DNA into both in order to create a hybrid. And they're messing with it to try to create a hybrid that looks human enough to fit into our society and that is human enough to be able to withstand our sunlight and our environment and all that kind of thing as well. So, but I do hear from a lot of men, but mostly I think it's women. And I think that is, those tables are turning a little bit. It was more women because our uterus was more useful. I don't think they need the female uterus now the way they did back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. I think they have perfected the process completely away from humans. I think they thought allowing um, that baby to begin to mature in a human uterus would give it something like a soul or more of a human quality, and they realized that's not happening, and so they're not doing that as much. So this has become something that doesn't happen now the way it did, and it's not needed now the way it was. And I think they realized we're not going to be able to manufacture a soul. Those only come from the big guy, and he's not handing those out to hybrids. So I think that they've kind of figured out is not helping.
Um, where can we find your book? Now, first of all, before you answer, everybody in chat and everybody listening now, listening later, all your links, Karen, I put in this show. So when people come on and watch this later, or people in chat right now, you can find all the links. However, though, where can we buy it like right now outside of your link? Amazon or a publisher or what?
It is available right now exclusively at lamarzulli.net. You will not find it on Amazon. You will only find it where you find me in person or
Okay.
at lamarzulli.net. So you can reach out to me, or you go to lamarzulli.net and go to his store page. Right now, he is running a special where if you buy my book, you get one of his free. So it's a great deal. We have another big special coming up. I can't tell you what, but coming up soon. It's going to be a really cool package deal with some movies and my book and some other things in it. Um, and if you follow my events, I post my events on social media. You'll be able to find where I'm going. If you look at Ellie Marzulli's events page, I generally follow him around. So if he's going to be somewhere, I'll probably be there too. And that's my favorite thing. I get to meet people in person. I get to talk with them. We get to share stories. We get to hug and meet and talk. I can sign books, things like that. So my favorite thing is doing these live events. And the next one I'll be at is the first weekend of April at Hear the Watchmen in Dallas, Texas. I'm not speaking, I don't have a table, but I have so many friends going that I'm going to be there, and we're just going to be getting together, doing fun stuff. So if you go to that and you find me, you can join in, and we're just going to go enjoy each other's company and just make it real spontaneous and have fun together. So, and then there's a bunch of other stuff coming up throughout all the way up through July, but I won't go through all those because you can find them online.
You can
So,
find them online, and
yeah,
I I just had a thought because I know don't go anywhere when we shut off the
sure.
show. I want to talk to you for a minute. I
Okay,
was
cool.
thinking about maybe trying to get a hold of L.A. Marzulli now that I know
Yeah,
you, but
definitely.
but I was even thinking maybe a L.A. Marzulli Karen Wilkinson show.
We can do that. We
You
love
know,
to get
well, we'll
together.
see. I know
Absolutely.
he's a busy guy. I wouldn't
He's a
even
busy
think of
guy, but
reaching
yeah.
out to him. He's such a big influencer out there
Oh, he
in the
loves to make time for
genre.
people. He is really busy, but his favorite thing I know is getting on these shows and talking with people.
You
He
know,
loves to make time for people. So we will make sure we get you guys in
well,
touch.
we'll look forward to that. And before we run, I got to thank 1, 2, 3, 4 for gifting and becoming a BMR pirate. He sent out a gift.
Yay.
Diane Boss, 2-month member. 1, 2, 3, 4 again for the
Awesome.
super chat. Girl and her gong for the super chat. Fisher of Spam for the super chat. Jimmy Roger for the super chat. I am humble. I appreciate that. It does help what we all do around here. You know, like I say, I'm doing this for free, but at the same time, it's not free, right?
Yep.
I love what I do and I love helping people, much like the lovely Karin Wilkinson. We're already great buddies. I can tell you right now. You know that. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much, Rob. I've just had the best time with you. The time flew by. I don't know where it went. I can't
Hey,
believe we've been talking this.
I get those shows where I could talk forever, and after
Yeah,
90 minutes, it's like I've only just
like
started. Crack,
I know. We have so much more to talk about.
you
Let's
know.
go. What do we have
Well,
to go now?
that's
We'll
what
do
they
another
have.
one.
But that's what they have part twos for, and sometimes part threes and everything else.
Yep.
So with that being said, everybody,
I'll come back.
Karen, stick around for a minute because I got to take care of
I
something.
will.
I'm not leaving you.
All
Thanks
right.
for joining. Thanks for
Thank
subscribing.
you,
Subscribe to
everybody.
Bigfoot Mr. Rob on YouTube if you're new here. Share us out, like us. And with that being said, until next time, check out the Blondes and Booze tonight, 9 in the East. See y'all there.